the one last question I have is kind of a doozy. And so we've been around for close to 10 years now, and our mission, or at least our beginning mission, was that we would end homelessness through a unified voice of advocacy, prevention, and service. It's recently changed to encompass this larger vision of how we see our community, how we see Albuquerque, and how we see homelessness in Albuquerque being rare, short-lived, and non-recurring. And it seems that vision becomes a little bit more tenable to obtain. It's not that we're going to say it's gone. There's zero homeless people. It's is it we have a system that is good enough to serve the people that enter the emergency service system so they can get out and get into housing as quickly as possible, and that we prevent homelessness from reoccurring in a lot of senses, which is what Albuquerque Heading Home is about. Not only is it about housing some of the most chronic homeless and medically vulnerable people living in Albuquerque, but it's also about keeping and helping them retain their housing as much as possible. And so I think celebrating an emergency shelter's 10-year anniversary is a bit, I don't know, I would say tenebrous, maybe, a little bit iffy. Yeah, but do you think that do you think that we're any closer to getting there, or do you feel like we're moving in the right direction?
Oh, I think the direction is clear and it's right. And that was something that I had to learn. And I learned it very quickly when I first volunteered there, as I say, holiday time of '05. My concept was, I suppose, an average concept, that it's a shelter. Mm-hmm. And I was a little leery about using that in the title, because I know that that's not in the title of anything around here, MHP or AOC or anything. And the goal is, of course, more than the shelters, is transition. Yeah. And that word is used as a verb, I think, transitioning into permanent housing. So I picked up on that very quickly about what the goal was. It wasn't just to have some place for guys to sleep, but it was to get them into some kind of situation, housing or group homes or whatever could be done, put them in touch with social services so they could get away from being chronically homeless. My understanding at that time, I mean, in recent years, the batting average is maybe 30% or 35%, is around in there?
Yeah, it's around 30%.
I consider that really good. I mean, considering the population you're dealing with. There's another thing I mentioned in the book. Some guys have been on the streets so long that they're uncomfortable in a shelter. Yeah. Just, it's a psychological thing. They always feel like a caged animal. And they're so used to being out under the stars or under the bridges that it's a tough sell. And then if you get alcohol or drug abuse in there anywhere, guys falling off the wagon and so on. I think 30% is a good batting average, but I know the goal is, of course, for more. Yeah. Well, we ought to have goals that maybe, to be blunt about it, are unrealistic. What's that? Who was the poet? God, who was that? I don't know which poet. Your reach should exceed your grasp. Oh. I think that's pretty good philosophy, actually. You know. Yeah. Yeah. So you don't make it, but to have that goal, work for it. Yeah. I don't find that frustrating, really. And I've been impressed with the Heading Home. I talked to somebody at the AOC. I don't know, it was another volunteer. I think it was Gordon or Tim. One of the guys had been out on this most recent campus, and I think it was a man. And wherever he had been sent, he couldn't find anybody. He was really astounded, because I think he'd been out before, but his geographic assignment this time, he was walking around and he really couldn't find
that's interesting to hear.
So that's interesting. Yeah. Maybe that's a trend too.
I think so. I think the news covered a little bit of it in February. Around there was a big decrease of people living on the street, or at least the people that we encountered living on the street. And the theory is those are the people we're trying to reach in terms of the ones that don't trust the system, they don't access the system, they don't leverage the system in any way. And so we're finding more and more that a lot of the metrics we've seen from 2011 have decreased in some ways. Some have increased. I can't give the numbers off the top of my head, but when
I've read stories in the paper that I think, by the way, you've gotten pretty good coverage from the Journal, and maybe some of the TV and radio, TV especially. I think they've been receptive to these stories.
Definitely.
And so that's a big help too, to get that message out there, you know.